All right. On this show, we have been covering the criticisms and even attacks against the teaching of critical race theory in the United States since day one. At the moment, there are measures in almost 30 states against the theory in some shape or form. My first guest of the evening has recently penned an article for the conservative online magazine, The Federalist. It's entitled, "Critical Race Theory Aims to Murder the Souls of White Children." In it, he writes, "They call for equity, which means equality of outcomes plus reparations. Inclusion, which is restricted speech banning anything some find offensive. And diversity, which is a violation of individual identity and enforced intellectual conformity. This is a form of mass indoctrination. These are strategies to indoctrinate people into critical race theory." Joining me now is the author of the article. He's also an author of the book that you saw flashing there. His name is Dr. Jason Hill. He's a distinguished professor of philosophy at DePaul University and the author of several books, including the forthcoming "What Do White Americans Owe Black People? Racial Justice in the Age of Post-Oppression." Professor Hill, such a pleasure to have you on this show. You wrote an article. I got to be honest with you, it shocked me a bit. Not so much your perspective, which resonates with many, but the sort of tone and the approach you took. As such a careful thinker, as such a trained philosopher, I would have expected a slightly different take. So I wanted you to help me unpack some of this stuff. You said that equity, inclusion, and diversity efforts are a form of mass indoctrination. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, first of all, Mark, thank you for having me on the show. I wanted to show, first of all, that there's nothing about critical race theory that has in it something called doctrinal purity, that there are various iterations of critical race theory. And let me just say at the outset before I answer your question, I don't think that every single grievance that affects the right or afflicts the right should be subsumed on a critical race theory. I know there are lots of things in our culture that are disturbing to people on the right, and they immediately blame it on critical race theory. So I wanted to sort of unpack, having taught critical race theory myself 25 years ago when I first became a professor, and intermittently introducing it into my introduction to philosophy courses. And having seen the various iterations of it changed and morphed over the years into a more strident form of activism, I no longer teach it because the attitude towards the students are different. And I wanted to write this article because of what my research has yielded in terms of how critical race theory is manifesting itself in K through 12 schools and in universities. It's no longer just being taught in law schools. I don't think it ever was just ensconced in the law departments in our country. And what I found was quite disturbing. In another article, I wrote a piece about how it affects Black children. And in this piece, I wanted to, for various reasons, which we can discuss, show how I thought it was affecting the agency of whites, because I fear that there is going to be a terrible... Go ahead.
Let's go there for just a moment, because that's one of the things that I found so curious, right? I mean, you're conceding from the beginning that there is a way, and people like Christopher Rufo have admitted this, that they want to attach all white anxiety around race, all acts of problematic racial discourse. They want to take it all and put it under this title, critical race theory, and to use his language, kind of destroy the brand of critical race theory. It doesn't allow for nuance. It doesn't allow for us to think deeply or carefully about stuff, right? So if we begin from that place, why write an article called "Critical Race Theory Aims to Murder the Souls of White Children"? Surely you could see that might actually add to the kind of inflammatory discourse and make it harder to have a sophisticated conversation about race in the country.
Right, Mark, because when I first started teaching critical race theory, and I was teaching really the materialist form that was espoused by Derek Bell in his good works. I mean, I disagreed sometimes with him, but I teach subjects I disagree with, which was the materialist iteration of critical race theory that is looking at how various material configurations like law, economics, and politics affect people in in different racial groups. I thought that was proper. I thought that it was any type of scholarship that was worthy of being taught. This has changed. What I see happening, Mark, is that critical race theory, the interdisciplinarity of it in the first place, and the non-doctrinal purity of it makes it very problematic, so that it has been appropriated by a number of different movements and a number of different individuals who are using critical race theory in quite nefarious ways. And I don't see the advocates of critical race theory, let's call them the purists, calling out some of these activities that I outlined in the article, like what happened to my friend's son and what I have seen in my research. So when we have school districts in Seattle public schools holding racially charged teacher training workshops in which they're told just explicitly that they are racist because they're white, and if they disagree, that their lizard brains are proof of their white fragility. When we have in the San Diego school system instances, I'm not saying this is all pervasive across all schools in America, and I'm not for banning it, which we can talk about later. But when we have instances of white students walking 4 steps ahead of black students, and then the black students being told to walk 4 steps behind, and then the white students are told to look back and see how far the black students are, and then are told that you're part of that systemic problem, which allows blacks to remain so far behind you. I think this is something quite dangerous. This is not the critical theory, race theory, that I certainly recognized 25 years ago when I taught it alongside, Kant, Aristotle, Hegel, Marx, although I'm not a Marxist, but I teach political philosophy, Montesquieu, and any of the other great thinkers. It's something very, very different. It's a kind of activism that is, I think, operating as a stranglehold, a coercive stranglehold on the minds of young children. And so of course, there's something a little bit hyperbolic about the title. Clearly, there are not white children falling dead because of critical race theory. If there were, then I think it should be banned. I don't think it should be banned. I think
we're talking about their souls. I mean, you said their souls, right? So I'm not suggesting you said they're murdering children, just the souls of their children, which is both hyperbolic and I think troublesome. But you said some other things that I really want to unpack, but I want to take a break so we can keep the show going. And then after the commercial, we'll come back and we'll talk about some of these ideas that you've articulated around race. Everybody stay with me. You don't want to go anywhere, because when we come back, I will continue a discussion about the teaching of critical race theories in schools with Dr. Jason Hill. Welcome back to Black News Tonight. We're here with Dr. Jason Hill talking about critical race theory. He's a distinguished professor of philosophy at DePaul University, and he's the author of the forthcoming book, What Do White Americans Owe Black People? Racial Justice in the Age of Post-Oppression. So, Professor Hill, there are a few things that you've said that I find interesting, and a few things that you've written here in your piece that I'd like you to explain a little bit more. So,
sure.
You talk about your research driving this, but when you write about this, you talk about it from an anecdote from a friend, a liberal friend who sat in on a 6th grade class and found their white son being told that they're responsible for American racism. I think part of the concern for many of us is that all of these stories about these sort of audacious teachers teaching these bizarre forms of racial discourse, they're always anecdotes. They're always, it's never like a school. It's never a teacher that we name. It's never a program that we can identify. It seems to me that in many ways this is like a solution in search of a problem, that we keep pretending that there is this moral panic around critical race theory that's infiltrating the nation. We did it eight years ago with liberation theology, that, oh my God, the churches are being filled with Marxist thinkers and we're going to make a bunch of Jeremiah Wrights. And it seems to me that this happens these moral panics occur whenever there's an election coming up. And my concern about the way you're thinking about this is that, again, instead of using the research, instead of giving us hard court cases, we end up with a lot of inflammatory language. Like you call critical race theory a moral eugenics program. You talk about a final solution. I mean, you're invoking the language of Nazis, the language of the worst forms of evil against Jewish people. And it seems to me that it only invites a kind of hysteria that does nothing to make our country better, does nothing to have an honest conversation about race. What do you say?
Well, I had written about 3 articles before in which I actually named Ohio school districts and Seattle public school districts and identified the districts in Ohio, and that article was quite cumbersome. Of course, it was for a large audience, and so what I wanted to really do, given the fact that the publication doesn't permit footnotes, is to sort of do a distillation of what I'd read, and of course, it's a broad interpretational latitude that I'm exercising here by using the kind of language that I've used after reading a broad swath of literature and also talking to teachers and working with neighborhood teachers, parent associations, making that kind of interpretational judgment that I made. So I understand why people would be not just offended, but actually quite put off by the incendiary, and I will use the term, the article
Absolutely.
is incendiary. I know when I write pieces that are very measured and I'm a scholar. I've written 3 academic books and scores of peer-reviewed articles. So I know how to write in a measured tone. But I had I wanted this to be a wake-up call in the sense that I wanted people to realize that there are activists, not all critical race theory advocates are activists, but there are a subset of activists that are operating in our school system that are straying from their lane. That is, rather than teaching critical race theory in its pure theoretical form, which questions Enlightenment principles, it questions the neutral principles of constitutional law, the very foundations of the liberal order. These are things that are open for question. These should be taught, right? Whether we think that the liberal order is the best order, critical race theory poses questions against meta-narratives, all these sorts of things that I was teaching. This is not happening. It's being taught as this kind of hermetically sealed, ideologically pure doctrine that has imprimatur of infallibility stamped on it. And I wanted to just go ahead, Mark.
That's where I guess we're differing here, and I appreciate that you, unlike almost every other person who's taking a sort of a critical posture towards CRT, you're saying, look, there's nothing wrong with critical race theory. It's not the monster, it's not the boogeyman that the right is making it out to be. You're beginning from that place, and I hope the Christopher Rufos of the world, I hope the James Lindsays of the world are hearing you say that hey, this is not what you all are thinking it is. But then where it seems to me you fall into the trap is you then take these outlier cases or these particular examples, and you talk about Seattle and Ohio, but those people aren't doing moral eugenics. They are doing racial teacher trainings around race. They are doing curricular interventions, but it's not nearly the kind of stuff you're talking about. They're not demanding reparations. They're not talking about a violation of individual identity, as you talk about. They're not coming up with a final solution. They're not doing any of that stuff. But you're allowing all that stuff to be called critical race theory when you, as an expert professor on this thing, know that it's not critical race theory. And the people teaching it are also not calling it critical race theory. It's not like the person in the class is saying, hey, all right, 6th graders, we're going to have a critical race theory class. They're just talking about race in a way that people don't like. And they're saying, well, you know what? Let's just call it all critical race theory and then throw it all away. And because you know it's not critical race theory, instead of simply framing it like these are somehow heretics, that these are people who are deviating from what critical race theory should be, why not just say they're talking about race in ways we don't like? Because, and I want you to respond to this, because my concern, sir, is that when you do it this way, it gives these people license. By these people, I mean the opponents of CRT. It gives these people license to avoid race talk altogether. And unlike you, they don't just want to avoid critical legal studies and critical race theory. Unlike you, they don't just want to get rid of these outliers, which you and I might not even agree on. They don't want to talk about race at all. They want to pretend that America doesn't have racism and white supremacy. They don't want to talk about the legacy of slavery. They don't want to talk about any of this stuff. So why not just offer the specific critique instead of buying in and even pouring gasoline on the moral panic when you know better?
No, Mark, I think respectfully, I think we're going to have a couple of civil disagreements here. One is I don't think that these are outlier cases. I think these are cases that are becoming, they're not endemic in all the school systems, but they're becoming more pervasive in our K through 12 system, school systems. So I don't think they're outlier cases at all. And I wanted to make, I want to make a distinction here on the show that they're what we could call first wave critical race theorists that involve people like Bell and who else? I read these people, so I should know their names. People like
Kimberly Crenshaw, Richard Delgado, or Stefanovich,
no,
or
I would say Patricia Hill Collins, Audre Lorde, and Bell Hooks would be the first wave, and the second wave would be Patricia Williams, Angela Harris, and Kimberly Crenshaw. And there's a third wave that are, I think, more bent on a kind of freewheeling activism. That's the brunt of, those people are the brunt of who my article is aimed at. Those radical activists that are not just teaching critical race theory as scholarship, as an academic exercise in reasoning about a particular narrative about how race has been constructed in this country. For example, I do think that one of the things that critical race theory gets right is that it is a social construct that has been created to maintain white supremacy and white privilege. That is, there are no biological anthropologists today that would say race is a biological concept. So that aspect of critical race theory is appropriate and actually should be taught, that Americans should know that they're
Thank you for saying that, at least, sir. I apologize. I hate to cut you off, Professor, but we're out of time. We've already gone over a bit. But thank you for that.
Oh, no.
Thank you for that analysis. And I hope that in the same way that you write these pieces, you'll talk back to the right and to those opponents, the Christopher Rufos, James Lindsay's of the world, and say that the privilege is real, white supremacy is real, that critical race theory is not the problem, but even if we disagree on the details and the specifics, that there's at least room to have a conversation about race, because many of the people who are supporting your article are using your article to have a very different analysis. But I want to bring you back so we can have this conversation and really flesh this out, including disagreeing on these different waves of CRT. Professor Hill, thank you so much for your comments. Everybody stay with us here on Black News Tonight. We can join the conversation anytime we want just by going to BNC's Instagram and Twitter feeds. They will let us know. The people will let us know how they feel. That's what I always tell everybody. Also visit the website bnc.tv. You can also subscribe to our YouTube page. You can check out clips from the show by going there to BNC News, and you can see it all.